Business etiquette. It's usually something that we think about when we think about holding your fork properly, or networking etiquette. It's so much more than that. And it applies on how we run our effective online meetings that we have with our team, with our clients, with our potential clients. So this week we talk with Nancy Kosik, an expert etiquette on how to run effective virtual meetings. Thank you so much, Nancy, for accepting my invitation today, and welcome.
Oh, well, I'm very happy to be here. It's been a long time. We're long overdue for a conversation.
We are. It's been a while. It's been a while. So Nancy, before we really dive into the topic today, if you could take a moment and tell people, who is Nancy Kosik?
Oh, okay. Well, I am a certified etiquette and protocol expert, and I'm director at NK Consultants, also affiliated with the Nancy Kosik Academy of International Protocol and Etiquette, which is quite the mouthful, also known as NKAIPE. It's a lot easier that way. So for over 13 years, I had the pleasure to provide customized training programs to corporations all over the world, helping them create basically a consistency within communications throughout either an entire department or different departments and all the stages that they offer in the service offer throughout the services that they offer their clients, in other words. So we build an awareness of different communication opportunities that will take place to help build relationships in line with brand identity as well, and to help people be as effective and productive as possible with their communication skills. So it's really desensitizing people and bringing the importance to communications and how communications will really help build relationships, brand identity, and help corporations succeed.
Nice. So in the past, I've had the opportunity to assist in some of your training, which is, some of them were on like networking etiquette, on dining etiquette, which we organized with one of the firms that was a client of mine as well, which everyone loved. Now I'm really curious. In this new online world that we are living in now, and in my opinion, and we're talking about this before we start recording, that this will definitely stay. How does the etiquette show up in the online world now? Like what is it?
Well, definitely. I mean, online, we're talking about a lot of different platforms, from email to virtual meetings, for example, right? So, and I don't know if you've noticed, Sarah, but people are texting in business way more than they used to.
Yes.
So that's right. Now with COVID, with the COVID pandemic, what's starting to happen is people are reaching out to each other with as many tools as possible. Whereas in the past, I would tell people, texting and emailing are two very different forms of communication. When you email someone, it's really viewed as a business document, an actual official document in business. So you need to treat it as respectfully as possible. Emailing is not a chat.
Yes.
But because we're emailing more than ever, we're starting to revert to the way in which we're writing and emailing people the same way that we use to text people. Texting is more of a quick form of communication, which should be used in scenarios where you're running a little bit late, or you can't reach, maybe the person may not have access to their emails in that particular time or whatnot. So they're for short advisories that are direct and to the point, which is why we should not be writing our business emails the same way, because we could be misinterpreted, and there could be a level of casualness in business that we could turn out as though it might look like we're crossing the line when we don't mean to. So it's hard to define those lines of casualness when we're using those tools. And then, of course, especially with virtual meetings, well, we're having meetings at home, so we're a lot more relaxed. There's a lot going on. Not everyone was set up to have meetings in their home as well. So, there's a lot to consider in regards to background, family, the noise factor, and so forth. So there's a lot of little challenges that I was actually kind of hoping to share with you, maybe give a couple of tips here and there so that people could kind of put their best foot forward if they're going to have a virtual meeting, for example.
Yes, please, because I see a lot of things going on. And I'm like, reconsider this. So yes, please share with us.
Okay, well, sounds good. Well, the first little tip that I wanted to give individuals, and this is one thing that I've noticed as well when attending virtual meetings. I mean, I've been giving definitely many more webinars than I have, usually we would go on site, such as yourself as well, and train individuals face-to-face or small groups or one-on-one sessions and whatnot. Now we find ourselves meeting people that we do not know, having to either, like I find myself having to train an individual, and I'll even write in my email prior to the meeting, looking forward to seeing you, right? The word seeing, paying attention to what you're reading as well. Now emails, again, everything is kind of interconnected, right? So you want to read your emails carefully, because if a person is we need to be more careful in regards to what we write. So we send out a clear message to the other person, but we also need to be equally as careful when we're reading those emails. So people aren't paying attention to that, and they're meeting with me, and here I am supposed to spend an hour and a half with them on a one-on-one session, and they don't even turn on their cameras.
And you see, I got a flash there that when I have a discovery call with someone and they're looking for a Zoom link, and I call them and they're like, I've been looking for the Zoom link for the last 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh, so that's a faux pas that I've been doing, that in my confirmation, I should be clarifying what's the medium that we'll be using.
Yeah. Never assume that, better to be more clear than, and never assume that everyone, again, there's multidimensional issues. People are working from home. They're probably multitasking more than ever before. So the attention span is a lot shorter, and things are read in haste. So yes, you can never be too clear. So provide that bit of information in point form, for example, and letting them know, if you may tell them also, this is one thing in your invite, or when you're sending out the Zoom link, letting them know that if they're having difficulty, to test the Zoom link 10 minutes prior to the start time, and if they're having difficulty, to text you in that particular case. So because if you're on your computer and you've got a bunch of windows open, it might be easier to receive a text saying, I'm having some difficulty, and then you might be able to reach out to that person by phone.
Oh.
So, which, by the way, thank you for reminding me. I want to make sure my phone is off right now. I don't want any surprises and phones ringing while we're on the phone together. So while we're on our virtual call, I mean. So there you go.
And I think that's also, what do you think, a faux pas that I see sometimes, and I hear sometimes, is I'll be on a call with somebody and their phone goes off or their email notification goes off and everything. And it kind of makes you feel that, hey, am I the only person right now? Like, am I the most important person right now? Or are they having this split attention?
Again, it's the same thing as though when we were face to face and having meetings with people in a conference room. It's shocking I remember, up until years ago, training people who have been in business for 25 years and still having to share with them that if you're speaking with someone, your phone should be off. And I will, there's always an excuse. There's always someone who will turn around and say, oh, well, my work is sales. I can't pass up a sale, for example, if I'm in a meeting with you. Or, there are always ways in which to be able to use our tools in the most efficient and productive way, the etiquette to technology, which I can spend the next 3 hours with you on, but we're not using our tools wisely. So, making sure that your voicemail, we say that voicemail is for dinosaurs. Well, it's not if it's used properly. So your voicemail should specify that from this time to this time, today is such and such a day, and from this time to this time, I will be in a conference and unable to take your call. Please leave a message. And if your business has a tendency to have emergencies, provide another way in which a person might be able to reach you or reach someone else during that period, during that particular amount of time. So you're working as efficiently as possible. And remember that your auto reply email should also be consistent with your voicemail on your phone. So there's no mixed messages. Because if someone is comfortable emailing back and forth with you and doesn't want to speak to you and doesn't call, well, they should be receiving the same message should they have decided to have picked up the phone. So again, we want to use our tools as efficiently as possible. So going back to your question, we can be present when speaking with other people. And that is something that is important. You know, picking up a phone or checking messages or verifying texts while you're speaking with someone is the equivalent of someone simply walking in and cutting into your conversation while you're speaking with someone. That's exactly what it is. And again, business is about building relationships in most cases. So, you know, this is the awareness that we need to develop and understand that it's not about your role and your tasks. It's about the experience what the other person is experiencing when they're communicating with you. That's what builds relationships. That's what makes people passionate about only wanting to work with you rather than someone else that is in the same field as you. That's how we build relationships. So it's very subtle and it seems really obvious, but we need to practice it to really be able to see the results of that, you know? So again, being present is super, super important.
And it's true. It's like those small details. You know,
Absolutely.
you're talking to somebody and there you see them like this.
Absolutely. Now, if you're going to be taking notes, for example, say you are taking a course or you are in a meeting, but your role is really just to listen and you're not really participating in the discussion, well, it's all right. You can mention to people that, you know, if I'm looking away, my apologies, it's because I'm taking some notes down. There's sort of a few key things I want to make sure I don't forget, you know, so people do realize that, you know, or again, you and I are both talking, say I was writing notes now, you know, the person you're speaking with clearly sees that you're writing and it's about your conversation and not something else. If you are looking away and you're using, say, 2 screens, which has happened with some of my clients as well, you know, have the decency to say, I'm sorry if I'm looking away, my setup forces me to have to look at another computer. So I might look like I'm not looking at you, but I actually am. So at least by mentioning it, it's not the best scenario, but by mentioning it, at least it shows that you're attentive to that person and you're aware that it might be awkward for them. So again, it's showing that you care about that other person's experience.
Oh, I love it because yes, it's that, again, that attention to detail. And could it be that in the virtual, that attention to detail of taking notes and maybe not advising the person, or, you know, looking at another screen and not letting, actually lets the other person be more in their head of saying, well, you know, is he not listening to me? Is she not listening to me? And when we think, you know, we're taking notes like this and we think the other person is not seeing us, they are, because your presence is not there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, you know, trying to be showing people that you're also present in the moment, making sure that you're aware of your facial expressions, that you are smiling while you're listening. There's nothing worse than being in a conference saying you've got 4 people on screen and you end up with, I'll just give you an example, half the person's head kind of just staring at the top like that with no facial expression whatsoever. They look completely not involved. Their arms are underneath and they're, you know, so again, you want to look like you're interested, lean forward, be aware of the eye contact or the best eye contact possible for that particular scenario. If you're speaking, use your hands so that, you know, you're showing, it's a little bit of a form of entertainment, right? So rather than, you know, having no movement whatsoever, use your hands, show you're involved, be a little bit more animated, but not overly animated, but animated enough. Little things like that is what will keep people interested in the conversation as well while you're having that conversation. So those things are also very, very important as well.
So very, I'd like to ask you a question on something, because when we all started on Zoom or whatever web platform, we all have a tendency of looking at the person. So looking at our screen. So my camera's there, we look at our screen. Now we've all gotten used to the fact that we need to look at our camera. Could it be that now we're actually entering a phase that people know that if you're looking at me directly, you're not looking at my face?
Exactly. I think that now we're starting to learn that. But again, right now I'm looking at you.
Mhm.
I'm not that off. You know what I'm saying? We don't need to be directly staring right at the camera all the time. It's the equivalent a little bit of, when you are giving a presentation and you're speaking with people, we're not looking, we're kind of looking at the entire room while we're speaking to a group of individuals, right? Or even if you're speaking with someone one-on-one, you're not going to make eye contact 24/7 either. Just a little reminder that you need to be for the majority of the time facing in that direction. It doesn't have to be that specific, but at least facing in that direction, so that it does feel that there's a connection taking place.
Awesome. Yes. And I'm trying to like having that balance. I'm also entering that phase where I'm like, okay, let's have a little balance
How
here.
much?
Yes, looking at my camera and actually looking at the person, because it's true that if I'm looking at the camera, I only see you from like the corner of my eye.
That's right. That's right. And it's nice to kind of go back and look at the person, because if I am just staring at my camera, some people will actually completely close the screen, the window where they see the person, to avoid them from looking at the person, and they'll just stare at the camera the entire time. But it is a little bit awkward just to be staring at a camera, but you don't really see anyone. So I personally like to keep the photo of the person there, no matter how small, no matter how big, and move back and forth from looking at my camera and looking at the person. The other thing too is remember that if your window is very big, you can make it a little bit smaller. Bring that window close to the camera so that it forces you to stay looking in a certain direction as well,
Oh,
So,
that's true. Sorry. So I have a program where there's many participants, and now I've started to move that window of participant near my camera, because otherwise I found myself, I was like this all the time, because like they were all on the side. So I was teaching, I was like this. So yeah.
It's a little bit of trial and error. I always recommend that if it is your first few times that you're using this method of communications, test it out with family temporarily. Go through the trial and error part of it with other people prior to figuring it out while on screen with others. Another thing too, we were talking about background earlier on, and I was saying, you want to be present. Use the virtual meeting as equally as important as you would consider meeting someone face to face. So making sure, yes, you do have the proper attire, okay? And believe it or not, we do say, okay, I'm not in my underwear down there right now, like I'm fully dressed, but you will have those people who are comfortable, they're wearing their boxers or whatnot, and they're having a meeting with just a shirt on or whatnot. But again, the way in which you dress and you prepare when you do meet someone will also affect your mood and how you communicate with people. So, just keep that in mind and say, okay, yeah, it's fun to be able to, stay in your shorts or be half dressed in your pajamas and your shirt. But again, think of, is this affecting your frame of mind, your sharpness, your presence, your professionalism? Every little thing does have an effect on how you express yourself. I don't claim to be a specialist as far as neurology goes or whatnot, but it has been proven scientifically that the way that you dress, your body language, the way that you carry yourself does affect certain parts of the brain, and does affect how you behave, your behavior, how you feel while you're having that interaction with others. So keep that in mind to even help yourself, and not always think, okay, I'm getting away with it, but put the cards on your side as much as possible so that you could be as effective as possible. If you're not in an appropriate spot as well, other than your attire, and your background might be giving off too much personal information. Some people may not want to show that they're living a very lavish life to others. Some people may not want to show that it's the opposite. You might be working on your kitchen island the entire time. So, looking at a fridge or, certain items that you'll find in a kitchen might not create the professional mood. So again, use those screens, the screen, the default background that can be made available to you. So
Zoom on that came out with a really nice feature, I find, is that you can now blur
Perfect. Exactly.
background, you know, so I'm not a huge fan of those virtual fake backgrounds
They
because
do look weird. Yeah.
they
Well,
do.
again, don't select the one that's on Mars, right?
Yeah, but like there's always like this surrounding around the person. And I'm like, yeah, it just looks off.
Well, that's the point. You know, some of them are not appropriate. So you want to choose an appropriate one, something that looks like there may be an office in the background or a simple plain background. Again, blurring the background is perfect if you can't tell what's in the background. I find that that's the ideal one, because also visually, what's nice is when the back is blurred, the person in front stands out more, actually. So I like that look personally.
Yeah.
But again, you know, just considering that, I actually gave a course to young adults recently on job search, and a lot of these, you know, young adults are sharing an apartment together with their, you know, studying in university and sharing an apartment with their classmates and friends. And oh my gosh, you can't imagine the magnets and the photos and the posters that are up on their walls in the background. I told them, you know what, if you're going to have a virtual job interview, this is not how you want to do it, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, again, keeping those little things in mind as well. What was I going to say? Making sure there are no interruptions as much as possible. Now, I know that people are struggling. In some cases, some people can't avoid it, especially during the time when students were not in school and people, you know, two parents were stuck working from home. And yes, the dogs, the cats, you know, a doorbell that might be ringing that's unexpected. So really try to organize yourself in the best way possible. So if you are going to have a virtual meeting, or you're two people working from home, or whomever you're living with, organize a schedule possibly that you can all share, where if one person's in a virtual meeting, everyone is aware of what's going on, so there would be no interruptions. Or if you're sharing a space, everyone will know, okay, well, I now know I can't be in this particular room or this particular part of the house from this time to this time today. So I'm going to arrange my schedule so that maybe I'm running that errand or I'm doing something else during that time. So, you know, trying to organize yourself in that way is also a helpful thing. You know, people are going to be returning back to work sooner than later, but I wish, you know, again, things that people have not been considering. Another thing too, though, is once COVID does subside and we're back to sort of new normal, a lot of people will still be working from home. A lot of companies are changing the tactics. So these are again, things that you'll want to consider moving forward. And what else can I think of? Just as far as visuals go and interruptions, that's pretty much it. You know, again, making sure that you're on time with that particular meeting, having a backup plan if you have something unforeseen happen, your computer happened to break down last minute. You know, you want to be ready to join the virtual meeting 10 to 15 minutes prior to. So this way, if there is anything that has taken place, you're able to reach the organizer and let them know what's going on so you could fix the issue. On that note, by the way, this is something that I have been teaching in meeting etiquette for corporations for a long time, is if you are organizing a conference, virtual conference with a few individuals at a particular time, try to send out 2 invites. If you're dealing with an important client, make the start time for your client 10 minutes after the true start time that you're going to have for your team. So this way, if anyone does run late last minute, you've allotted some buffer time. So this way, when the client does join, your whole team is there and there's no one that may show up late, you know?
That's very interesting. Oh, and coming on team meetings. So like we said, the virtual working from home, I also believe will stay. I have a lot of clients who have questions on how do I manage a team meeting when there's multiple people, like, and everyone's from home. So like, how do I make sure that everyone is involved? And this can apply with my team, but it can also apply with clients, you know, but that everyone is talking, that everyone is contributing. Like, what are some of the tips that I can go and get people from there?
Well, I think the preparation is something that is, if you're well prepared and you've provided the right details to everyone that is invited, this is how people will, this will allow you to create the smoothest organized and productive meeting possible, and not one of those meetings. You know, how many times have I heard clients tell me, oh, there's nothing more frustrating. We're becoming professionals with meetings, but we only end up accomplishing half of what we wanted to accomplish, you know? So, and again, making sure that everyone is involved. So in your invite, you should make sure to always specify the goal of the meeting. You should always specify the topics that will be addressed, because this is what will help also discourage people from bringing things up that other people aren't prepared for, or that may extend the length of your meeting and prevent you from talking about what needs to be discussed. So, so specifying the topics, and within that topic, saying who will be involved in that conversation. Because psychologically, when a person sees their name next to a topic where they may be called upon, they will most likely be prepared for it as well. So as a team lead, what you want to do is, by mentioning that, letting people know, I might be calling on you for this particular topic or that particular topic. So by doing that, they will be prepared, and if they have any questions, they will ask you beforehand.
Oh, that is such a good one. And it's something that even when we go back to in-person meetings,
same thing.
That should definitely, because if I know that I'm to contribute, that I might be calling about, I'll be more present.
Definitely, and prepared.
Yeah.
Not only present, but prepared. You might also want to mention, if someone does not see their name there, well, that's where you could also assign the role of timekeeper, for example. So if you've allotted for a meeting of an hour, and you have 5 topics to cover in 1 hour, well, you'll break it down where each topic will have a certain amount of time in order to make sure that you've covered all the topics predicted. So a timekeeper, by saying, okay, well, John, for example, you'll make sure, notify us of the last 3 minutes so we could wrap up, or in case such and such a person didn't have a chance to give us their input on that particular topic, because sometimes people monopolize conversations, right? And 2 other people might not have a chance to respond or reply. So it is so that person has the right to politely interrupt and let everyone know we've got 3 minutes left for this particular topic, and we still have so-and-so that hasn't spoken yet, So, and again, to start off by always doing that politely. So if you'll excuse me, and again, we know we're expecting that person to let us know that's their role, so we won't be offended if they do interrupt. So there's that, and there's another person that may be taking minutes, for example. So by mentioning who will be taking note, and of course, if you decide not to go the minute route or taking notes of the meeting, and you do decide to record the meeting, it's important to advise everyone at the start while you're recording, so you have everyone's approval on the recording that they accept being recorded. So you want to make sure that you have that, take place, because you never know how a meeting might turn out, and it might turn around and say, well, I never said, for you to record. So you have their approval, or you might have it in writing, or you might mention that in the email as well. So when you're sending out the invite. So
I love it, because you brought up, like, in our time together, so many things, yes, on the technical aspect, but not just technology in terms of background and whatnot, but also in terms of how we are, our behavior.
That's right. And again, making sure, I forgot to mention the mute button, right? A lot of people, sometimes in groups, everyone will be on mute until it is their turn to speak. So by having a list of who may be called upon for a certain thing, people will be ready to kind of set themselves up or organize themselves. If we're talking about something, I might remove the mute for that conversation in case there's some back and forth between the individuals scheduled to speak on that particular topic. So it's a nice way to be able to control things. By the way, as a team lead also, now something else is coming to mind. As a team lead, make sure, I like the technique where people don't just join in, not unexpectedly, but unannounced. So I find a nice meeting, mind you, not a meeting of 30 people, but I'm saying if you're a small group of, say, 5 people or 6 people, it's nice for the team lead or the organizer of that meeting to still, even though we see people's names on the screen, it's nice to introduce who's who and from what department or what their title is. Okay, so you do that at the start of the call. And if you happen to have a client, don't forget, you as the team lead might have been the only person in that group who has been interacting with that client. Other people have not met the client yet. So be sure to treat the client differently than just they're part of your group. You know, you want to say, you know, welcome, Mr. So-and-so. Let's say Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith is the CEO of such and such a XYZ company. I want to welcome you and your team to our meeting today. I'd like to introduce members of our team here at such and such a corporation. We have, you know, such Alex Smith from technical support. We have such and such a person from parts services. We have such and such a person, you know, and so on and so forth. So that is a nice way to go about it, you know. So introducing your client, then introducing your team, rather than just say, okay, welcome everyone, and just assume that everyone's read the email down to, you know, to the last word, and assuming that everyone knows everyone. So it's a nice way to cut the, to break the ice and kind of, again, create a sense of connection with everyone. There is one thing in business, you know, the more your clients, and I'm a big believer of that, feel that they've made a connection, connected with someone, or that they know, the more people they feel they know at your corporation or place of work, the more connected they will feel to your corporation.
Yes,
definitely. So
definitely.
again, there are all these little subtle ways in which to, again, build a connection with people. So you use the introductions as a means to do that.
So I introduce my client first.
Yes.
And then whoever, let's say I'm in a meeting and I'm bringing in an expert, an outside expert, and then that expert, but always the client first.
Exactly. I mean, just letting everyone know on the call that the client is there. I'd like for all of you to meet Mr. So-and-so, who is who holds such and such a role with this company. And you say, welcome to him or her or them separately. And then you say, okay, welcome everyone, you know. So a great way to start your meeting is, you know, hello everyone, thank you for joining. And oh, another good little thing is say thank you for being on time, okay? Because that sets the tone that as the leader of this meeting, you're going to walk the talk. That's what that says, you know. In other words, I scheduled a meeting for this time. I noticed that you're on time, and everything that I set forth that we're going to do and discuss, we're going to do. So it sets the tone right at the beginning of the call. And again, thank you for joining us. I'll say Mr. Client, okay? And may I introduce Mr. Client is so-and-so. So you're introducing him to the group, and then you'll say, I'd like to, Mr. Client, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce my team in attendance for our meeting today. We have so-and-so on the line from such a department, so-and-so on the line. And again, welcome everyone. And again, I'd like to make sure that we're clear on the order of topics addressed, which I sent out to you in the invite earlier on. That's a way of subtly telling people, let's stick to the agenda at hand. Okay, so that's again a polite way to make sure that you're having an effective meeting, and then reminding everyone that you've allotted extra time. And this I recommend all the time, that if you've scheduled an hour and you feel that you have ample time to discuss those 5 topics we talked about earlier on, well, then you can say, I've allotted an extra 10 minutes at the end of this call. Should additional topics come up, I will remain on the line with our client and address them as best as possible, because you may not want the members of your team to be addressing things that they might not be prepared for. So, you know, it's all dependent on, you know, circumstance and whatever the meeting is about, but it is something for everyone to consider. And well, I mean, one good practice, mind you, virtually it's not as important, but if you're having a phone conference call and it's not virtual face-to-face, you want to make sure to ask everyone to please announce themselves before they speak all the time. That's good practice, because again, sometimes we're not sure who's speaking, and there may be 3 people talking on one particular topic, so the voices might not be that distinct.
Oh, that is such a, yes, definitely. And so a lot of these points, we will definitely be able to also use them when we go back to in-person meeting. And I have a question in terms of, how do we gauge as we go back to, you know, a combination of virtual and in-person meeting?
Mhm.
How do we engage in terms of setting the tone? Is this going to be an in-person meeting? Is this going to be a virtual meeting? How do we, open the door to a client? Is he open to an in-person meeting, or does he want to stay virtual? I think there's going to be a little bit of some awkwardness around that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, basically, what you want to do is um, in business also there's a fine line between being assertive and being aggressive, right? And sometimes because we're dealing with clients, we don't want to make these decisions because we feel that we're being aggressive and we didn't give them a chance to choose. So what you want to do is, as a leader, you also want to show your leadership skills, and you want to be as effective and productive as possible with what not only works for your client, but what works for you as well. So you can suggest, for example, a virtual meeting, but there's no harm in simply putting, if this suits you, otherwise, please provide the format that you prefer. And leave it at that and let them decide at that particular point. But that should be determined before sending out the official invite. So if you want to verify that with your, don't go changing the invite and changing the details of invites, because then that gets really, really messy as well, so people don't know which one was the last one, which one was the first, or some people might not notice that there was an additional invite or correction to an invite that was sent out, and they're still using they still think that they're going to be joining in via Zoom link or Teams link. So determine all of that when you're communicating, whether verbally or by email with your client. And then once that's determined, go ahead, but there's no harm. I mean, you're not being rude in any way by taking the lead. Sometimes many clients like the fact that, a person takes the lead, and again, always leave the door open for change if they, if this doesn't work for them and they prefer to have simply a voice message, or they prefer to meet in person. And so then you can act accordingly, and you can adjust accordingly when the time comes to send out your invite.
Yeah, because I think what the next phase we're going to enter it is, yes, some people want in-person meetings, some people don't want in-person meeting. So we need to be conscious and delicate on that one, on seeing how do we want to handle that one,
Yeah, now that you're saying that, I'm realizing also that there's going to be a little bit of a, well, not only for productivity reasons, because definitely, hopping into a car, going to meet someone face to face is a lot more time consuming than setting up a virtual meeting by computer. There are advantages and disadvantages to that, which I can go into, but in brief, when you meet someone personally, face to face, there's obviously a better connection that takes place. Even though you're face to face virtually, you do feel closer to someone when you see them live, obviously. Yeah. So, and again, the eye contact is way more prominent. You get a feel for the whole person rather than, just the neck up. There are so many other reasons why, but that said, don't forget now, there's going to be an adjustment period. And this is what I have been telling my clients and actually trying to promote, is that team leads in different corporations will find themselves, they'll find themselves and or their teams have regressed. In other words, I think people will have regressed as far as face-to-face communications and verbal communications. People are emailing more than ever before, and we're no longer practicing these skills. And the fact is that, the human connection, we're wired for that. We need that. And we need it socially, and we need it in the business arena as well. So, if you want to succeed and you want to build substantial relationships, well, we're going to have to start making the effort to pick up that phone, speak with someone rather than reply to them by email, make those conscious decisions that we were making before, where, in a scenario like this, if I'm going to deliver bad news, I'd rather do it viva voce if I can't see the person right away. I'd rather do it using my voice or virtually so that they could see the smile on my face and the compassion that I have. So, definitely face-to-face is the ideal way to connect with people. Virtual is the second way, visually, virtual face-to-face contact. Verbal would be third best, and definitely by email is, the fourth. And text, we want to avoid that as much as possible and really just keep that to quick communications that can't be misunderstood, so advisories, and that's it. So again, yeah, so go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, these are all great points, and I think people get a lot of takeaways in terms of, okay, maybe start asking yourself, like, how is my virtual presence? How am I, yes, virtually, technically, in terms of the look and feel? How I'm now navigating this new phase that we're going to enter in terms of, should we do it, as the client, does the client want to do a virtual meeting or in-person meeting? And maybe also, if we continue on that sense, it's when I meet the client in person, are they comfortable handshaking or, like the elbow thing? So it's to bring that consciousness, that awareness.
That's right. That's right. I think now come September, people are going to start meeting face to face. So, I have a feeling that the handshake will be 50-50. It won't be fully returned as of yet, but it will be 50-50. But we just need to know, again, how to approach it. So this will be like the next phase of etiquette that I'm sure people are going to start questioning. How do I go about it if I'm not comfortable shaking hands with people right away? Corporations will have to decide on how to inform, to what degree do we inform people whether people have been vaccinated or not? And if so, how do we go about it? I mean, that's a whole other topic in itself. And it'll vary, I think, from depending on that business's culture and what it is that they do and what service they provide. But there's going to be a lot that will need to be considered. And again, I say this time and time again, etiquette is about making people feel comfortable. And if people are comfortable, you're creating a good experience for them. And, always keeping that in mind, approaching people in a way where you're not kind of pointing the finger, choosing your words wisely, expressing concern and genuineness rather than an aggressive way of no, don't come near me, that type of thing. Or, so again, we're going to have to be, I don't like to say walking on eggshells, because we should by nature be considerate to other people's feelings and how other people react to how we speak to them. But we will need to pay extra special attention in the next 6 months, I would say, to how we approach people and how we express concerns that we might have if we're meeting with them, so, and corporations will have to take that into account as well.
And I love how you say etiquette is about making the other person feel comfortable.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. That's the goal in the end, and if you've done that, well, then if you're doubtful about how you handled things, well, if that person did have a good experience with you, there are going to be good times, there are going to be bad times, there's going to be times where people are going to be anxious, but in the end, we live in after this, we want to maintain our relationships with people, because once COVID is done with, and that sounds almost unreal. I have to select my words because it almost sounds unreal, but we're going to get there. So, once we're done with the COVID pandemic, those relationships will still exist. So be very mindful about relationship building during this time. I can't stress that enough.
Definitely. Nancy, a huge thank you.
Oh, well, I'm very, very happy to have seen you and to have joined you and to have shared my thoughts with everybody.
Tell me, where can people find you online and find more about everything that you do?
Well, as you can see, I've got plenty to say.
Yes, and there's plenty more that I know.
I've been known to go on, but you can reach me or visit our website, which explains a little bit about my background and some of the topics that we do cover. But the website is NK, my initials, Nancy Kosik, dash, not underscore, but dash consultants with an S.com. Or you can reach out to me by email, info@nk-consultants.com. And yeah, if anyone has any questions or whatnot, or wants to inquire about, again, any type of training or in customer facing, customer service, whatever the format, reach out.
Definitely. And like I said in the beginning, like I've had the privilege to, I was going to say the chance to assist to few of your trainings, which have always been super, super valuable. So I'll put in all the information in the link below and invite people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I hope you liked this episode. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It made me realize that I keep on playing with my hair all the time. I drank some water. There's so many faux pas that I do myself. So I think I'll be watching and rewatching this episode a few times. So if you like this episode and if you'd like to receive them straight into your email, into your inbox with more tools and strategies to help you build and grow your service-based business, come on over to 𝒎𝒐𝒔𝒊𝒃𝒍𝒆 and join our blog, which is also known to be called the best blog, because we talk about marketing, productivity, and mindset. Basically, all the tools you need to succeed. So now, have a better etiquette. Be conscious. Let's be aware. Let's make people more comfortable. Because once we actually create those relationships with our clients, with our team, with our potential clients, with our strategic alliances, we see that so much more is possible. Thank you for being there week after week, and I will see you next Tuesday.